Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another video. This is another paid request, this time for Manuel. And for those interested in requesting pretty much any type of topics or reactions or commentaries, reviews, reactions, randomness, whatever it may be, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. But be aware, commentaries are fine, but I realize I'm not good at them. Well, I did one for another called Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, and hopefully Julie's okay with it, because I feel like I sucked at it. So I'm going to do my best, but I'm not really. I realize I'm not as quick on the fly as I was hoping I would be, so I apologize. But thank you, Manuel. I have a pause at the beginning. 3, 2, 1, pressing play. Yeah, I'm definitely not a Mystery Science Theater 3000 quick-witted guy. But here we have the New Line Cinema logo for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 1990. Now, big fan of the film, of course. I am a fan of the characters. I grew up with the 80s cartoon like a lot of people, and I saw this on VHS with the black, with a little bit of green, but it's a black tape. The cover, I should say, the cover's black, and there's a little bit of green. The turtles are at front, kind of standing, posing. As we have New York and the crime spree, there's Judith Hoag as April O'Neil. Previously, she had been in films like Cadillac Man with Robin Williams. Rumor has it, when Robin Williams heard she was doing this film, he actually brought her some Ninja Turtle comics. Which, if that's the case, that's cool. Pretty cool. I could buy that, because, I mean, Robin named, I think, one of his daughters Zelda, like the video game, so. But I remember seeing this on VHS. There's Danny, the little fuck, with his Sid t-shirt, that little prick. Danny needs to get the fuck beat out of him. But I remember, like, the 80s cartoon I grew up with, and then I did not see this in the theater. I saw it on VHS tape. And I grew up with this, the second and the third film on VHS. Over and over and over again. I still love the first two. The third one, I liked as a kid, because, hey, it's Turtles. But that one does not hold up at all. Not for me. But I still love part 2, sincerely, and I love this one. Now, here we're seeing the variety of crimes. Of course, it is a family film, so you're not going to have the comic books, which were much more violent. I mean, they were ninjas. The first comic was them attacking Shredder, pretty much killing him. And they would kind of curse, but they would also fight and bleed and kill when they needed to. Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird created them to be kind of like a satire parody of mutant, X-Men. I mean, even Splinter is kind of a take on Daredevil, just Daredevil's mentor was Stick, and that dealt with ninjas. So hey, Daredevil's mentor is Stick, why not Splinter? Here you have Burger King. Whop, there you go, product placement. And you can definitely tell by the tech. And like, right from the get-go, there's some really nice shots of New York to make it seem like a dangerous place. And this movie is a combination of the comics and the cartoon. Cartoon slightly in the fact that April O'Neil is a news reporter. And even here with the yellow slicker, yellow raincoat, that's a take on her outfit in the cartoon. But Steve Barron, the director, and others wanted to go back to more of the tone of the original comics. So the streets are wet and grimy, and it has a little bit of a tad touch of that Batman 89 flavor to it. Because Batman was 89, this was 90. So it's still fresh on people's minds. And this is the same time you had Dick Tracy come out and others. And, I mean, you have this group ready to attack a woman. They bring her down, and I don't know what they're going to do with her after. Beat the crap out of her, maybe worse, and the first instance of you see them as ninjas, using their environment, using stealth, take out the light, kick their ass, and then lo and behold, about a minute or two, you see the Turtles full glory thanks to Jim Henson's work, which this and the second film he did a fantastic job with in terms of animatronics, and then you have the voice actors for the most part doing their jobs well. And this is a Raphael that's very different. Like the 80s cartoon, he was goofy, comedic, had an attitude, but it was more like, you're a nicer guy. This is much more of an angry hothead. And then that Brooklyn voice. Definitely when I thought of Raphael, this is the incarnation that I thought of the most. I mean, this is a turtle that gets violent, that wants to fight, that fights with his family, that's not perfect, that even curses. You know, voiced by Josh Pais. Did a wonderful job. And yeah, Golden Harvest. Land of the Kung Fu movies. And Steve Barron directed this. He did a fairly good job. From what I understand, Steven Spielberg and his son saw and liked the movie and even offered Steve Barron Casper because Spielberg was producing it. And for some reason, Steve Barron said no. Apparently, he later regretted that. And I forget what else Steve Barron has done. I know he's done a few other films since then. I think, did he do like a Pinocchio movie or something like that? I can't remember. But here we have Leonardo jumping in, voiced by Brian Tochi. Brian Tochi, he was the Asian guy in some of the Police Academy sequels. And Michelangelo, the party dude, voiced by Robbie Rist. Robbie Rist was Cousin Oliver on the old Brady Bunch show. Robbie Rist was also, he was even a voice on the Angry Video Game Nerd movie. The alien, this kind of like E.T. but not. That was voiced by Robbie Rist. So, Brian Tochi voices Leo. He voiced it for all 3 live-action films. And then Robbie Rist voiced Mikey. He voiced it for all 3 films. Corey Feldman voiced Donatello. And he voiced it, not for the second, but he did it for the 3rd film. And I was never big on Corey Feldman's voice on Donatello. First, they made Donatello to be Michelangelo 2.0. Nothing about this seems Donatello. Donatello is a genius. He knows about machines. He's smart. To me, that's featured in Part 2. I thought Adam Carl, who voiced Donatello in Part 2, did a much better job. It was a much better fit. Donnie was much more scientific, using computers. He felt more like his own character in Part 2. And in Part 3, he just became Mike. Well, he was a little bit more scientific in Part 3 compared to this, but Corey Feldman just doesn't fit. Corey Feldman, I don't hate Corey Feldman, but I was more of a Corey Haim guy. Again, Corey Haim I was more a fan of. But Corey Feldman, here you get this little bit of family where Donatello's trying to, be nice, and, Raphael gets pissed about it. And just watching now, this is back in 1990, these animatronics, the features on the faces, the movements of the eyes, they still hold up fantastically, because you cannot get more real than real. And it always confuses the hell out of me when so many years later, when they do all this marketing stuff for even this movie, in the second film, they always use the picture of the 3rd movie, where they look like they're decomposing in front of your eyes. They got these big old moles, and Splinter looked like he was dumped into a vat of KFC and pulled back up. I'm like, why are you using these shitty butt-tooth-looking motherfuckers from the Part 3 movie that look cheap, instead of these fantastic-looking animatronics? But again, so many times where it's like, oh, the turtle websites, like they talk about the first film, but they have a picture from the 3rd film. It's like, these people don't know what the fuck they're doing. That'd be like me doing the review, but I have a poster of Part 3 over here. But yeah, Corey Feldman, I don't think he fits as Donatello. Kevin Clash, which I don't know, I've heard rumors about Kevin Clash. I don't know if those are true or not true, but he was the puppeteer of Elmo. I think helped do the voice. He worked here on Splinter. And that's the thing with Donatello. They kind of turned to Mighty 2.0, which I do wish in retrospect they would have made him a bit different. Hell, I mean, and also a different voice. I thought Raphael, they did the best job differentiating him. I think that's another reason why he kind of, I was drawn to that character, because I understood where the characters was coming from, and maybe I did more than that later. But of course, Raphael, voiced by Josh Pais. Josh Pais was a New Yorker. He would later appear in a few other stuff. I think he was in like Scream 3. I think he was one of the detectives. He's been in a few other stuff. Now, in a way, this is an important moment for the Michelangelo character, because Donatello's asked him a simple question, and Mikey just shrugs it off. And that's because he doesn't want to think of serious moments, serious ideas. He just lets it flow over him. Now, that's supposed to lead into later on, which was a scene that was cut, where when they're on the farmhouse, as April O'Neil does drawings on each person except Mikey. Because there's a section that's in the comic book adaptation of the movie, where Mikey got pissed and was smashing the farmhouse, and he's finally, the fun-loving guy, the optimistic guy, finally loses it. He becomes Will Smith. It just goes, freaks out. But I'll get to that when that comes up. But here we have a bit on dominoes, which I always thought was weird, because when the VHS came out, it was an advertisement for Pizza Hut. Making it great. I'm like, so wait, you have an advertisement for Pizza Hut, but you have Domino's in the movie. Forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late pizza. I think you just look at these animatronics, and the way the eyes squint and move, and the mouth pieces, and how you have to work in conjunction with all the animators to make it flow as best as possible. Here's a little ode to Critters, which I think at one point there was talks of it being Batman 89, but Critters was New Line Cinema just like this, so they're like, yeah, make it Critters. Yeah, a nice little moment. Like, this is the type of character Raphael would be. And we're going to be introduced to Elias Koteas as Casey Jones, which in the comics he was first introduced in a Raphael one-shot, where the two of them, Casey's being overboard, Raphael stops him, they both fight, Casey runs off, and then later on they become friends. And sadly they don't go forward with that whole story, because they do where Raphael is the one that gets beaten up and put into a coma, and in the comic books that was Leonardo who did it. And so there's Casey Jones and Donatello getting to know each other, which really, you think that would be Raphael, I didn't base it on the comics. And Elias Koteas is fantastic as Casey Jones. He's got the charisma, he's got the sense of humor. And I remember reading at one point, Kevin Eastman said, one of the inspirations for Casey Jones was Jack Burton from Big Trouble in Little China. And we see Elias Koteas, the way he plays it, the way he has a rapport with the April O'Neil character on the farmhouse. You can see a bit of that Jack Burton quality to it. I hate punkers. See, now you be calling furries. And I believe this fight might be longer, because I remember there's a picture where it looked like it was in an alley or something, and Raphael has his hands around Casey Jones, and I did his arm around him, in a chokehold, and that's the thing, that a lot of stuff was cut out of this film, and there's never been a special edition to this day, which confuses me, dumbfounds me. I mean, there's overseas, there was a German DVD, and you can see it now on YouTube, the extended ending. But like all the other stuff that was cut out, and you just to this day haven't seen the other lost footage. I wish there was a common. There's Josh Pais in the back seat talking to the cab driver. So Josh Pais is the guy he was the one in the suit and doing the voice of Raphael. And then, damn, I mean, this is the first time you saw Ninja Turtles say damn. And like, oh, okay. And that's the thing, is that this is a family film, but there was still moments of seriousness, like this scene coming up where a father tries to calm his son down, or, you know, one of them gets put into a coma, or, you know, there's stakes involved. There is serious stakes involved. It's not all fun and games, and that's one of the things that goes a bit underappreciated. But even as a kid, yeah, I mean, the dialogue could be very 90s, but at the same time, it doesn't talk too much down to you, even as a child. You know, so there's some nice emotion and heart to it. And yeah, I thought Josh Pais did a... I would say he's my favorite voice of Raphael. Now, when this was being made, no studio wanted it, because they figured, I guess it'd be like, maybe like the He-Man movie. You know, they did Masters of the Universe. Well, that was based on a cartoon, and the film didn't do well, so this would probably be the same thing. It's just a fad. And ultimately, it got to New Line Cinema, and it became, at the time, New Line Cinema's biggest hit. And at the time, it was the most successful independent film of all time. I think, I don't know if it was Blair Witch Project or maybe another movie that beat that, but this made over $100 million. And it didn't cost that much to make. And New Line Cinema afterward would release DVDs with features. Rush Hour, they did it. Blade, they did it. Other movies, but they did an Elm Street box set and then a bonus disc with features. Why they never did like a Ninja Turtles box set and then have like a bonus feature or, you know, commentary? There's so many things you could do with it, and just never have. The closest is that stupid Turtle Power documentary, The Definitive Look, that it's the definitive. We looked at every part. Well, 70% of it is missing, but good points, you do get people talking about the first movie. That's one of the good points on that. I'm like, okay, then look at it as a special feature of the first movie. And you'll be more positive. But when they said, oh, we're going... so full of it. Now here we have the Chiefs. And I can admit, you know, I don't really care about Danny and his dad and their drama. I mean, it's not like anyone watches this film is not going to give a shit about that part. But I still feel that the Turtles are the main draw in the film. I mean, 5 minutes in, I just saw them as characters interacting with them. I got more out of the Raphael character right now than I did in either of the Michael Bay produced bullshit. And here they are again. It's like not too long. They're not off the screen too long until we see them again. And they're aesthetically well designed, well made. Other than Corey Feldman, the others are well voiced. Shredder is imposing. He's dangerous. He doesn't look like a Genzu knife come to life or a fucking Megatron. It's, you know, 90 minutes long, so it's not long. You know, doesn't overstay its welcome. And Judith Hoag did a good job. She didn't come back for the sequel. I keep hearing differing reasons why. Either they didn't ask her back, or she thought it was too violent, or I don't know what the deal is. But I do think she brought a nice attitude and spunk to her character of April. But I like the lady in the sequel as well. I would remember. I had her name in my head. It's like, I'm bad with names. Damn it. But yeah, when the film, this, like I said, this is around the time where Batman had just come out, was a huge success, and then you see this films wanting to capitalize on it, whether it be like Dick Tracy. Then a few years later, you had the Phantom and the Rocketeer and all these other movies. And funny enough, the one that was the most successful was Ninja Turtles, and they had a sequel that was successful. That made about 80 million in 1991. The third film did make money. It made about 50 million. And these are the Foot Clan. They don't look like a SWAT team like those other later movies. And you don't have Raphael, 40 minutes in, whatever, grabbing a shipping container like he was the Incredible Hulk and throwing it 250 feet. You have him being an actual ninja, coming in and doing martial arts right here. Coming in, tit two people in there, blocked you, tit you, fuck you, kiss my ass, saving the day, saving the girl. And that is one thing, again, I love the film dearly. A lot of it's nostalgia, but a lot of it I think is a well-done movie for what it is. It was always weird to me, script-wise. For this first chunk of this film, it has all the ingredients of making the Raphael character the lead character. I mean, of the four turtles, he's the one given the most individual qualities. He's the first one to meet Casey Jones. He's the one to save April O'Neil. He's the one to bring her back that goes to the inciting incident where their lair is trash and Splinter's missing. He's the one who's got anger problems. He's the one that later gets beaten up and thrown and put into a coma. Any other movie would have a culmination of that character having some big justification at the end. Whether it be, in this case, him being the one to save Splinter and rescue Splinter, because, not on purpose, but he accidentally had the Foot find this lair, so he'd be the one to save Splinter. I think that'd be a nice full circle motif on the story. Or maybe he's the one fighting Shredder, but because he's been humbled by being beaten up and put in a coma, doing all this other stuff, maybe he gets a little bit of more traction than the others, showing that he learned something. He's being a high head, the others are being it, but then he actually gets some moves in and actually has a few words. I don't know, just something. It's like they set up for Act 1 and Act 2, but then he just wanted the 4 in Act 3, and I'm like, that's not a natural progression. Same with, like, they hint, like, maybe there'd be a Beauty and the Beast between Raphael and April O'Neil. I'm not saying it's going to be a hardcore sex session. Maybe some people's dreams, not mine. But not saying I need to see, Triple X parody. But like a little bit of something. Even like she just hugs him, or like a peck on the cheek, and it would never be, but there's a little bit of, I don't know, a little bit of something. It's just, I don't know, it just felt like they're building up and then they forgot about it in the third act. And this, in the back of my mind, always bothered me. I didn't either have him save Splinter and him fight Tatsu, and he breathe Splinter to where they need to go. And that could very well be Raphael than Casey Jones. And in fact, story-wise, it would make more sense to me. But here, I mean, we're going to the backstory, and I thought, if you're a fan of the cartoon, you'd be confused by this, going, "Wait a minute, that's not how it is in the cartoon," because it was Hamato Yoshi was Splinter. They were one and the same, and Shredder messed with him and got him kicked out, and he went to New York, and then some ooze got on him and the Turtles, and he was a human turned to a rat. This is more akin to the comic books. And it makes more sense than the Michael Bay produced shit. Where they just find a fucking magazine of martial arts and Splinter goes, "Hey, this looks cool. Let's do this." Because there were parts science experiments that April O'Neil had as pets. And they're like, "Oh, sure, here's a magazine. I guess we'll do martial arts." I do think Robbie Rist did a good job portraying sort of the sense of humor, wisecracking of Michelangelo, but at the same time not making him annoying or irritating or seemingly dumb, so to speak. And again, I'm a fan of the film, but I can admit there's stuff I would change. Again, Donatello reworked his dialogue a bit, and see, that was a bit weird, because Donatello was coming out of the manhole, and then it cut to Michelangelo, like, rising up, and then Donatello's in the manhole. I'm like, what do you do? Pull him down, and then he go up, and then Donatello comes back up again? I'm like, okay, that's a bit weird. But again, this is all of the characters, like, being relatable. You got Mikey, again, doing a Sylvester Stallone impression. I'm sure people watch this today are like, who the hell is James Cagney? But yeah, as time went on with the I mean, like I said, they were created with the comics. They were doing very well with Mirage. And then when the cartoon came about, it was some guys saying, "Hey, these comics seem pretty cool. I want to make toys out of them." Well, it's a hard sell to make toys out of them. Let's have something else. Like, okay, how about a cartoon? Because G.I. Joe, He-Man, they were successful in that. So, this is kind of a neat little bit here with Raphael. Like, sort of certain look. Seems like he wants to wave to her. Maybe there's something else he's thinking of. But it's like they don't want to go forward with it. Again, I'm not saying they gotta have a fucking makeout session. That's a different ninja rap. Wrap your legs around my face. I'm not saying that, but I don't know. I guess they're too skittish about stuff. But with the action figures, they're like, "Hey, let's do this cartoon." It was only supposed to last like 5-6 episodes. And then that went over well, and it's like, oh shit, people really like this. So then the cartoon was born, and it became a huge hit. There were video games. There was 3 on Nintendo. There was some on Game Boy, Super Nintendo, arcade. The arcade game in Turtles in Time. And then as time goes on, let's do a movie. I'm sure there's different, like, at one point there's talks of doing a movie where it was like a parody, or like Trauma was thinking of it, and it's like, oh, it's just be comedians, and they just put like a red or orange or purple bandana. Just really shit ideas. But, they made the right one here. And then, they did the 3 movies. The third film was not loved by critics or fans or that much box office. So then, that was around 93, and then the cartoon was dying out. after quite a few seasons. I don't know, 8, 9, or 10 seasons. Maybe 10 seasons, and then... But other than the next mutation, which was a live-action show that lasted 1 year by some of the people that made Power Rangers, there was really nothing between mid-late 90s and the early 2000s. Power Rangers had overtaken it. Other things had overtaken it. You know, the kids who grew up with this, like me, grew up busy with school, high school, after high school, what you going to do with your life. Until, you know, years later, and then Kevin Eastman left, and he decided to take over Heavy Metal magazine. Peter Laird was the sole owner of the Ninja Turtles, and then said, hey, let's do another cartoon, which became the 2003 cartoon, and that has become one of my favorite incarnations. I love the 2003 cartoon, especially the first 4 seasons. Easily one of my favorite incarnations ever. It's my favorite cartoon of the Ninja Turtles. They took it a bit more serious. There's a bit more of an action show. It still has comedy, still for kids, but it's definitely much more of an action show. And they take a lot more inspiration from the comic books. And I read the comic books later, like much later. I did, probably in the late 90s, I read some of them. But yeah, the 2003 cartoon, I love what they were doing. And that's, you had the 2007 CGI movie, which I saw in the theater. And when I saw in the theater, I'm like, okay. But, you know, as time went on, I'm like, there's a lot of missed potential in that movie. I think that movie has a lot of missed potential. That they're just holding back too much and bad decisions. See, at least with this Danny stuff, it's not like, okay, that took, what, 40 seconds? And then, you know, this stuff I could deal with because you're getting to know a little bit more of the villains. Of course, back in the day with evil kids, what would they do? They play arcade games. They smoke. They play, you know, skateboard. They dance. They play narc. Because if you're a narc, you die. They graffiti on their own walls. They gamble. They do whatever the fuck that one's doing in the corner. There's no sex. There's no killing. There's just skateboarding. And here's Sam Rockwell. Sam Rockwell here, talking down the stairs, going to be ready to offer cigarettes. Sam Rockwell, regular or menthol. Now, whether that be, he was in Galaxy Quest. He was in an underrated sci-fi film called Moon. They definitely got your Pepsi products. And the whole idea is that these kids are, they have nowhere else to go, nowhere else to be, so they're brought into this thinking they're a family when it's not. And of course, we just saw the first appearance of Tatsu, which was created solely for this movie, and he would be in the second film as well. Tatsu, I forget his name. He'd be in other films. He was in Showdown Low Tokyo with Dolph Lundgren and Brandon Lee. He's in a few other films and martial arts movies. Now, this is where some of the editing for the MPA came into... Well, maybe not strictly for that, but... actually, I think it's later on. No, I'm wrong. It's later on. It's later on when he's failed. Because this is a setup, and then later on, he's mad, he fights someone, and the guy's supposed to be dead. So yeah, it's a later scene. He's supposed to have like his neck cracked or something, and so they'll check on the person. The reason everyone has such a serious face is that the person's supposed to be dead. But they cut that because of, they feel, you know, a bit harsh. And here we have Shredder, who definitely gives off a Darth Vader vibe to him. But it made sense. I mean, it's Shredder. They put him in the shadow, low light. You know, the costume works well. I know the person in the costume is not the person who voices Shredder. They're two different people. They definitely got the mask right. They got the mask right, the costume right. It doesn't look like Megatron or a giant fucking Genzu knife like the Michael Bay produced bullshit. For some reason, I keep thinking he's going to say like Freddy Krueger, "You all my children now." And yeah, I do like the sequel. I know they went more kiddified, but I still thought it was fun because I thought the turtles worked very well. The suits were gorgeous, animatronically excellent work by Jim Henson and his company. The voices, they kept Leo and Mikey's voice. The guy who voiced Raphael sounded just like Josh Pais in the first movie. They did a really good job. And the guy who voiced Donatello I thought was a big improvement. And there's a lot of good family little moments. As a fan of the characters, I see a lot of these little moments featuring Secret of the Ooze that really make that film endearing to me. Like Mikey, rubbing Raph's head to calm him down, or little bits here and there where they're acting like a family. And just in this, they do, but at the same time, they're so distraught with what's going on with Splinter that, they're on edge. Mikey and Donnie is pretty much almost the same type of character. I just like little moments here and there that I liked. I'm your father. Yeah, he really is Darth Vader. I am your father. No, you are a motherfucker. But I mean, even this for back in the day, I mean, you have Splinter chained up with his clothes like he probably got the shit kicked out of him. That's why it would have been nice if Raphael went and saved him. I love, Elias Koteas as Casey Jones, but like I said, it would have been nice to see that. Here's this turncoat piece of shit. Fucking bash his head and throw him off that banister. Get the shit out of him. Fuck Danny. Fuck Danny. How's she a good reporter? Because she's just talking about the news? But yeah, the turtles are sucking up to her. And 1990, I mean, it's a pretty good year for movies. You got Total Recall, Arachnophobia, Predator 2, Die Hard 2. Sequels I enjoy like Child's Play 2, Exorcist 3. I'm trying to think now. See, I get. It's hard to remember all the films of one year. Usually I have like Wikipedia or something in front of me. But that's what I mean, where it's like these little bits that make it seem as if this is the main character. Like, here's April O'Neil specifically thanking your Raphael character with a smile. And that was another thing I liked about the second film, and you saw a bit of Mikey and Raph interacting with each other, because Raph doesn't really interact with any of the other characters. Really, it's mainly Leonardo. But you don't really have any moments other than one little bit on the farmhouse between like him and Mikey or him and Donnie. And that's what it's kind of like the family just kind of having fun, like playing football or something in the second film. And the 2003 cartoon, you definitely get a lot more of that. But again, as a kid, you're like, wow, okay, these two are arguing with each other, they get mad at each other, and they're saying these things to each other. Wow, it's actually kind of drama, a little bit dramatic between, brothers fighting. And even like the way it's lit, it's not bright and shiny and cartoony. And I know a lot of this was shot in North Carolina. I think it was around the same city Like you had Maximum Overdrive and such being done in. Of course, this is established Casey Jones seeing this, which is why he arrives later on. Because if he's watching this, he will have seen him being attacked. But then it's like weird, like, you know, Casey Jones first interacted with Raphael and sees him being attacked, but then they really never talked with each other again. Not even like a little moment of just Casey, you know, going up and talking to Raphael or having a conversation. Maybe, hey, you know, I know how it's like. I got the shit, well, you wouldn't say shit, but I got the crap kicked out of me, I don't know, when I was 15 or something, and or maybe something about his backstory with his dad, or he was helping protect his dad, some muggers beat the crud out of me too, or something. But yeah, the lighting and like they knew that some of the just it's a well-made flick. Like again, the lighting, the cinematography, it's well done. And like I said, you know, you had the second film that came out that I enjoyed because, well, of what I mentioned. And there's still martial arts in that film despite being a sillier movie. The third film suffered by poor decisions. Just even more of the... See, it's always cool just to have Raphael, you know, kick a little bit of ass before things change. Which will change about now. But yeah, in 1993. Well, I guess, you know what, I'll admit something to this. I've admitted this before, so I'll admit it again. Like I said, in the late 90s, this is when I'm going through high school. I graduated in 2002. And that was when, again, by that point, it would just be worried about what's going to go on with the rest of my life, all that sort of stuff. And like I said, Turtles had not really been a thing in my life for a long while, being a big fan of them when I was a kid. And so then what happened was, in around 2000 or 2001, we got a computer. And that's when I saw this thing called Fanfiction. I'm not talking about the fanfiction where a girl writes, I fell in love with this person and now we're married and he saved my life. No, I'm like, there was some actual good stories going, wow, you did actually write in depth with these characters? Well, yeah, why not? You did write with anything, so that got me kind of pulled back into it, and then reading a lot of those, and then hearing that there's going to be a new cartoon in 2003, I'm like, oh shit. And then, again, be more serious. You could tell that they changed the head on this because the head is less articulate during these scenes. That's because you want someone in the suit to be a lot more active with his arms. Which I never understood the whole UK thing where they would delete some of this stuff with the nunchucks. Anything with nunchucks they would delete. Like if you saw this in the UK, Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. Again, I don't get that. I don't understand that. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's like, swords are cool, swords are okay, but not nunchucks. Again, it doesn't really make a whole lot of damn sense to me. But whatever. And so now you finally get the other guys we get to see them fight, because we've seen Raphael fight in the subway, a little bit with Casey Jones, a little bit on the rooftop, but now we get to see the others fight a little bit. And it's not a wall-to-wall action film. If you think about it, after this, it's not probably until the end of the film, the third act, because they go to a farm and they just developing more of the characters between April and Casey, developing. I mean, this goes on for quite a few more minutes because the floor gives out all that stuff. And that's one of the believe it or not, when the Michael Bay produced movies were thought of, way back in the day, I wasn't against it. And I even thought he was directing it. And I'm like, okay. You know, I liked The Rock, Bad Boys 2, you know. Okay, that obviously means he's going to get a budget. So, okay, these guys, it's easier to make them the stars because you get people in man-made suits. It's not like you do at Transformers because of the size of the Transformers. But with Turtles, you get people in suits, you get the effects done. They could do well in 1990 with this, and 20-some years later, much more improved you can get. Even if it's like, okay, make the eyes and the mouth CG, but the rest of it, the same or similar. And so it's easier to make them the stars, and there's 4 of them. There's not 14 or 13. There's 4. Each individual characters. So you could do that. But, and yeah, have them do martial arts, and the budget's improved, so you get some really crazy fight scenes. But no. No, of course not. Fuck if I know why. Here we got Casey Jones. Oh, who's the babe? Wayne Gretzky on steroids? And we have Casey Jones doing some business here. And, I mean, let's face it, the reason they have Casey Jones do more is because they want more of a human face. Because despite it being the title characters, despite giving a little bit more, it's like they don't want to go full force into thinking an audience will get behind a non-human character. Even to this day. It's like it has to be a human character because the audience can only identify with a human character. I'm like, well, that's weird. I mean, how many fucking animated films are made where it's a non-human character and people are fucking fine with it? Like Wall-E. But for live action, it's like, it's too much for them. I'm like, no, unless someone is shallow. And again, for the budget, like, they didn't have fight scenes, and also the limitations, not just budget, but rating. I mean, this is rated, what, PG? With PG, you can only have so many times you can hit someone, punch someone, connect with a weapon, and that's why I wasn't as mad as others when they took away the weapons in part 2, because I'm like, they can't do a lot with the weapons anyway, unless you change the rating. Unless you change the rating, you can't do anything. Like, even with here, Leonardo swing with the sword, but other than a few cuts he gives to Shredder, he can't do much with the sword. Raphael with the sai, maybe he moves a little bit, but he can't do a whole lot. Break the light bulb. Michelangelo, he hits a little bit with nunchucks, but he can't do too much. Donatello has a bow, so he can do a bit more with that. But unless you up the rating, you can't do much with them. So I'm like, fine, go ahead, might as well take them away. What's the big deal? They can't use them much anyway. They're limited anyway. So here's Tatsu being pissed, and I think this leads to yeah. One of these people he does kill And that's why you get this serious look. And at the end, either there's like a crack or something else that you would have heard. I think it's this guy here. Because I think he's the guy who was like the new recruit that got the mask recently. Yeah, I think when he fell down, there's supposed to be a crack. And that's why this look is on everyone's faces. I mean, it's not because a guy got knocked out. It's because you see the guy look around the net. He's doing a pulse check. And that's why Danny's so horrified that, oh my god, this guy just got killed. And this is where you're going to get a bit more of Splinter's backstory. And to be fair, the actor playing Danny's not doing a bad job. It's just... we don't care. That's not why we're seeing the movie. But, I mean, he has a lot less screen time compared to, like, Megan Fox and Will Arnett and shit in the Michael Bay-produced movies. Like, let's be fair on that. And this is mainly due for an exposition scene anyway, with Splinter. But yeah, when the third film came out... Let's see, I talked about... Oh yeah, we as a family got a computer and found the... Okay, we're not there yet, the exposition. Which I think some of this was shot in North Carolina as well. And this is a nod to the comic book as well, because in the comic, Leonardo was beaten up and put into a coma, and then they went to a farmhouse. But now here it's Raphael. What she did is like, okay, after that, I think you made him like you've been building up, even that conversation he has with Splinter, don't forget them, don't forget me. Where's the result of that? It's like a build up, but where's the payoff? And that's the thing, is that Raphael doesn't get a payoff. And that just confuses me. And I'm like, I think with another polish of the script, this could have been even better. I like the film, but this just to be even better. Like another polish, keep Michelangelo as a few more scenes of him just being playful, being funny, and then keep the bit where he loses it. And maybe he goes to Raphael, who's unconscious, and he tries to be nice, and then he gets pissed off and angry, and why'd you do this? Then he apologizes, he runs off, or... But yeah, it's not supposed to be that kind of movie. It's a kid's movie. But I wish they would have gone even further in that direction. And see, like, when she's drawing the stuff, she draws Leonardo, who's with Raph. She draws Donatello, who's with Casey Jones, but she never draws Mikey. Because, again, here she's drawing Donatello. Again, if you get, or if you have the comic book adaptation of this movie, it shows that Mikey was just breaking stuff in the barn. He's finally mad and angry. He's not the happy-go-lucky guy anymore, and he's doing all this stuff. And the shot later on with the turtle going, Splinter! Now, they put Raphael's voice in there, but if you look, he's got nunchucks. It's Mikey. So that was meant to, again, Mikey's supposed to have this character bit, and they completely took that out, which was a mistake in my opinion. That was a mistake. And there should have been like a little nice scene with Raphael and Mikey, and maybe Raphael's the one who talks to Mikey and gets him to lighten up again. And that leads to that bit where Mikey has the turtle wax joke and Raph gives him a nudie. That'd be like, at least that'd be like a nice moment for Raphael. Like what Splinter taught him, he's being humble by being, in a coma. He does something nice for his baby brother, Mikey. and have like a little nice moment. Like even that alone would be nice. But hey, what do I know? It is what it is. But I mean, it's still, this bit here is a nice serious moment where there are stakes involved. It's not just goofy, silly, just for kids and nothing else entirely. Even by name, she never mentions Michelangelo. She names everybody else but Mikey. And also, there's another bit that was cut out, like extended training bits. That's why you see like a picture of. Maybe this was just for shits and giggles. There's a picture of Donatello with like a hat and something in his mouth, like a piece of straw. But I know there's extended bits of training where Leonardo was blindfolded and teaching the other turtles some stuff. Again, in the adaptation. This stuff is well done, this back and forth between the two. They have good chemistry with each other. It breaks 3, 2, there you go. Again, they worked very well together. And this is, again, a nice little character moment between the characters where, it's a nice, just a nice moment between two brothers. Shows them, it's a bit of heart to it. And the voice actors do their jobs well, Brian Tochi and Josh Pais. Again, that's a nice moment. Even then, it was nice, like they have the eyes on Donatello glisten. And you could tell, like, this montage was not originally how it was intended. Like, that. See, that's Michelangelo yelling. You could tell there's nunchucks right by him. That is supposed to be Michelangelo, not Donatello. I mean, it's not Donatello either. It's not supposed to be Raphael. They put Raphael's voice in it. So, like, there's stuff that was meant before. Is like, I don't know why. I don't know who. And that's the thing, that the commentary is disappointing because there's no one, like, asking him these questions. Like, how come with Raphael, how come he's built up in Act 1, Act 2, but nothing with Act 3? Was there anything more between him and April, Beauty and the Beast style? Or was there more, like, Raphael would save Splinter? Or why this thing with Mikey was edited out or cut down? Or, again, you're like, why? Why is this? Why that? And I think, even this extended bit was... this training bit was extended. And yeah, even though this film has merit to it, the critics still didn't care. They just looked at the title, and they just, brush it off. Once again, why you never take Rotten Tomatoes seriously. It's not the site, it's a combination of the reviews. But even then, it's like, a review could be 2.5 out of 4, and depending what they say... No, 2.5 out of 5. It'll be 2.5 out of 5, and they just pick whether it's a good or a bad review. Fresh or rotten. Just whatever it may be. Yeah, and that's like the only bit between the Raphael and Mikey characters, which were always my two favorites. I always thought they had a possibility of a good rapport, which I saw in the 2003 cartoon. Just one of the stories that I always think of is early on in the comics, like the second or third issue was the Raphael one shot. And it was Raphael getting so mad, so angry, so pissed off. Well, I should mention, like, this bit here would later be referenced in National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon 1 with Emilio Estevez and Samuel Jackson, like everybody else. It was a parody of action films, and at one point, Emilio Estevez goes to a sewer, and he comes out in the middle of this scene. Which, I mean, it's New Line Cinemas, so that's why they were able to include it in. But, yeah, in the story, it was Raphael getting so angry and mad that he actually has rage. Hot, white, flashing rage. And he literally, without thinking, grabs a pipe and is ready to just bash Mikey right in the head. And someone stops him. He's like, what the hell are you doing? And he's like, he snaps out of it and he runs off, and that's where he meets Casey Jones. But I'm like, that to me, if for Raphael to be, I think that could be such an important part of a story. Whether it be anger, self-doubt, retribution for yourself, redemption for oneself. There's all sorts of stuff you could play off that one event. What led him to thinking that? A guy who hates himself, but maybe his brother still likes him, and he's like, why do you still care for me when I did that? And there's a lot you could play into that, and when people say that you can't do that with these characters, I'm like, you're full of shit. I mean, if I could think it off the top of my dumbass head, you can as well. And like I said, there's another nice little emotional moment, and this is why Mikey starts crying out of all of them. It's because he's supposed to have this anger and rage that we didn't see, but he was like fighting in the damn barn and getting so mad and pissed off, and this is where he's finally, crying and letting that wash over him. And again, then fucking you lose that because they cut that shit out and never to be seen to this day. But at least when you go to these two, they're good as well. Because Judith and Elias Koteas, they work well together. They have great chemistry with each other. They're good actors. Elias Koteas, he would appear in quite a few other stuff. He was in Collateral Damage with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was in The Prophecy with Christopher Walken. I'm trying to think, like, what's a... Now I'm drawing a blank. I think he was in that film with Crocodile Dundee himself. Angel movie. God, I forgot what it was. Shows how much I remember that film. I don't remember the damn title. But he would still keep working, but I think this is like the role people remember him the most from. To the point that he didn't come back for the second film, but he did come back for the third. But it seems like he only came back in the third. Number one, probably for a paycheck, but two, thought I'll be Casey Jones, but I want to be this other guy in the past who's a lot less interesting of a guy. I do like this line where it's like, don't shoot. I don't think it's loaded, kid. Now beat the shit out of him. Get him. Fucking power driver him. And this is a joke that kind of goes under the radar, but like, you're claustrophobic. And then he goes, "You want to punch in the, you want a fist in the mouth?" I never even looked at another guy before. Like he thought he said homophobic. See, that's a joke that again goes under the radar, but it's kind of genuinely funny. But I mean, this gives the excuse that he's in the truck, and then he's able to see Danny and go off and save Splinter. But yeah, it's like, well, that could have been Raphael that did that. I always thought it was weird that it's Domino's. I know I said this before, it's Domino's Pizza. Get more advertisement, but on the VHS it was fucking Pizza Hut. That'd be like, okay, you got Burger King, but then if you bought the VHS, it's sponsored by McDonald's. It's like, that's weird. But yeah, I remember the VHS tapes vividly for these films. I mean, like, even the commercials. You're making it great. Even the second film had a trailer for Suburban Commando. We don't sue. What are you kidding? This is the '90s. We don't sue you. Or what was the other movie? Big Girls Don't Cry. They Get Even. I think it was called a different movie. And the song was like, "Love me, da-da, 'cause I'm free." Here's Casey Jones noticing. Again, that could have been Raphael noticing and following him. But I guess the more I think of it, was like, well, why doesn't he tell, the other guys, to be fair? But at the same time, it could be like, well, I don't want to spook him. I don't want to steer him off. I don't know, even like leave a note or something behind something. I don't know. There's always a way to work around it, script-wise. Damn, look at all these arcade machines, pool tables, all that jazz. Or you're thinking maybe Casey Jones, he sees his hideout, then he goes back and gets the Turtles, and then the Turtles sneak in and fight this big old battle in this warehouse. Like, this would be a great set for a fight. You just smash foot members into arcade machines or onto pool tables, and the pool table collapses, and use the lights to smack people with the lights, or suplex, or just push them or kick them. They fly through the lights. See, that's me thinking in modern terms. What I would do. I'd be like, let Casey come back, the Turtles fight, and then like Raphael could fight Tatsu and rescue Splinter, or like all this other stuff you could do. Sadly, that wasn't the case, but I'm just thinking in retrospect, I think that would be very cool. This is where you get the exposition of. I thought this was a interesting idea to make the background black, just total blackness. There's I don't know, maybe like a dreamlike feel to further showcase this is a flashback. It's a different, unique way of doing it. And yeah, I mean, the what was I going to say? The characters have definitely survived throughout the decades through various forms of media. I mean, I mentioned video games, comic books. I mean, there was the Archie comics, which at first were adaptations of the cartoon, then they did their own thing, their own stories. You had Image had the characters for a while. This is when, like, Raphael lost an eye. Leonardo had his hand bitten off by an alligator, or maybe it was a crocodile. Fucking maybe Donatello became part cyborg. It's like a Raphael took control of the Foot Clan and wore the Shredder outfit. Very weird part of those comics. It didn't last too long. And then IDW had them for a while. Then I didn't. Yeah, this 2007 CGI movie, which has some decent elements. I don't mind some of the animation of the environments, but the story was very lacking. And like, that's a movie that did not need to be only an hour and 20 some minutes, because you're reestablishing the characters. You put all these other characters, not only Casey, not only April, but all the villains and the different types of villains and the Stone Generals, and then Karai and her Foot Clan, and this backstory, and they're separated, they had to get back together, and Mikey and Donnie really didn't have anything to do. Which you just say the same in this, but even this, that's the way that did, was just lacking. The villains, the story. Leonardo was a complete dickhead in that movie too. Two-faced prick. But it's still better than the 2014, 2016 films. Those steroid abusing, oversized, gargantua, idiotic, moronic, imbecilic fucktards. I might as well say directed by fucktards, produced by fucktards. Everyone was an idiot in that fucking thing. Christ. Fuck those movies. And fuck that shit. And the cartoons, like the 2003 cartoon I loved. Then Peter Laird sold them to Nickelodeon. That's how the other movies were made. The 2012 cartoon, which I liked the first season or two of the 2012 cartoon, and then in my opinion just went downhill during season 3, just into the crapper, in my opinion. Then that newer cartoon was such a piece of shit, didn't even last, 2 seasons? Piece of shit. Now they're with Nickelodeon, and now Seth Rogen's gonna fuck them up the ass with a fucking Bond, probably. So he gets stoned all the goddamn time, the fucking idiot. Fuck Seth Rogen. But this is the Turtles, using their brains, using their skills, using their environment. Let the steam do all the work, so they beat the shit out of them. I still can't get over, there's an interview with Kevin Eastman when that 2014, the first of the Michael Bay produced stuff coming out. And Kevin Eastman was like, oh, it's going to have fight scenes like the Raid Redemption and Fist of Legend. I'm like, Kevin Eastman, you lost every ounce of credibility after that shit. Which I'm like, first of all, how the fuck do you know? You're not making the film. They gave you a cameo that they cut out. And two, what the fuck do you know? You think the third film is better than the second film of this original trilogy. Because that's all you got in that Turtle Power documentary. The second film sucks. The third film's bad, but it's better than the second film. You think... I'm sorry, anyone who thinks the third film's better, I don't know what the hell you're smoking. I know that's being mean. I guess I'll be mean on that front. I'm like, the Turtles themselves look like shit. That makes no fucking sense to me. But hey, and all, truthfulness, teach their own. I know I kind of did a Heckle and Jekyll and Hyde thing there, but oh well. I am what I am. I'm an asshole. If you like the third film more in seriousness, teach their own, but I don't get it one damn bit. See, this is where you definitely see a bit more of this Jap Burton with the wise ass, the sense of humor, not being the best fighter, and then Casey Jones being overmatched, but then just that one lucky shot, just like Jap Burton did with the knife, wind the low pan. Here, he just beat up a little bit, then sees the golf club. Right about here. At least the next time you saw him, he did get beat up by the turtles themselves. With the shell shock, so to speak, of a maneuver. And pretty much, the turtles, kicking ass. There's Donatello, did his moment. And these terrors just come out of the fucking woodwork. Which idea is weird to see Donatello on a skateboard. You would think that would be Michelangelo. Like Michelangelo on the skateboard with the nunchucks. I mean, that seemed like that would make more sense. But again, they just thought of Donatello as Michelangelo Part 2. And like I said, I love the film, but even I can have little issues with it here and there too. And there's Sam Rockwell again. Is it what you said, family? You call this here and that right there family? Forget you. But yeah, I mean, now Seth Rogen's going to ruin those characters even more. And it just... That is a shame that you could say the best film this franchise ever had is back in 1990. I mean, you give people almost $100 million to make the Ninja Turtle film, and yet it's not better than a film from 1990. I'm talking about that Michael Bay, because I don't remember the fucking director. I think it was director, and I liked Battle of Los Angeles. I liked that movie, and the director fucked up with that bullshit movie. That dialogue almost sounds like being Austin Powers. Like when Austin Powers about ahead, like don't get ahead in life, or don't lose your, he was just one step ahead, or while they're talking about the shell thing. I remember in the trailer they had this moment with Mikey and they have a completely different voice. And I'm wondering maybe that was the voice on set. Which, I guess, I don't know, that shows how far or how they were into making the film to have like a different voice for Mikey in that trailer. It depends which trailer you see, of course. It's like the original teaser or whatever. And the Turtles getting their moments to shine. There you go. 1, 2, 3. And they kicked everybody's ass. And see, that's the idea. And okay, the second film. I enjoy the second film, but I can admit in the ending of the movie, it should have been the Turtles finally defeating, beating up the Shredder on their own. Not turn to Super Shredder and get killed by Doc. It's like, okay, they lost him the first time. Now this time they actually will defeat Shredder without the help of Splinter. I think that would have been, you saw how they were the first time. They've improved. They're working together. That was their issue. The issue was they went at one at a time. The four of them together. Boom. There you go. That's how the second film should have ended. I liked the film quite a bit, but even that film I have little issues with it, just like with this. So people that always go, I'm so harsh on movies I hate. No, I can be nitpicked on films I liked as well. But it's still a damn good movie. Now, I saw like some of those Foot Clan left, so what, did they just escape into the city, or none of them got arrested or something? I guess if you looked a bit... like, I mean, they're trying to fight the Shredder, but it makes sense, he's the main villain. He's going to be tough to deal with. Even this, like, they can't be too harsh in the hits because it's still a PG movie, so you're not going to have the punches, kicks, cuts, all that jazz. I know for a while, after the third film, there was talks of a fourth film for New Line Cinema, which that was going to be the original idea for the next mutation, where I guess they felt the Turtles, they needed a change of pace, change of look. So I think it was like Raphael, like their mutation would change even more. So like Raphael became more of a monster. I think Donatello, something, I don't know if he became smarter or electrical. So I don't know. I think Leonardo, some about his skin or stuff to turn more into steel. And then Mikey, he could like make himself look like a human. Or I don't remember the details. There's also talks of a fifth turtle who would be maybe an evil turtle. I don't know what the deal is. It's interesting that, this time is Leonardo losing his head. I guess that's the only inclination that Raphael learned something, is that while Leo's the one who loses his head and Raph is the one who decides to throw his weapons down, do you see the other two are looking at him and then do what he decides instead of charging ahead? Again, that's really like the only little semblance of an inclination that Raphael has learned something from all this. But I don't know. I would have liked a lot more from that. I should mention the music. The music is very well done. And I thought this was a nice moment. Like the voice, the seriousness, even with the music, the realization of who this character is, at least in Shredder's eyes. And, using the momentum against him. The wise old Kung Fu master. Yes, I know it's not Kung Fu, it's ninja, but I'm just saying... in all those movies, who is the Kung Fu master? An old motherfucker. That just has to do a couple things and shove off. I also think they did that because they looked at the Turtles as the main, like, kid-friendly heroes, and they didn't want them to kill Shredder. So, in this movie he's supposed to be dead, and in that movie somehow he's alive. But it's like, well, we can't have the Turtles do that, so let's have Splinter do it, because, hey, it's Splinter. And I don't know. Maybe it's not for that reason, whatever it may be. I think Steve Ulrich is in this movie, too. I think he's one of these kids as well. I know Sam Rockwell is, but I think Steve Ulrich, who would be in Scream and other films, I think he's one of these kids as well. Again, I think so. Here's the bit that no one gives a shit about Danny and his dad. It's not like you don't have action figures of Danny or action figure of his dad. You know, Charles. The Dan and Charles action figure 2-pack. Coming soon to nowhere. Also, I mean, with this Chief Stearns, like the way he got pissed off earlier in the film. I always thought you could do an edit, like when he's yelling, and then you have Whoopi Goldberg and Jumpin' Jack Flash going, "How about I kick you in the nuts so hard they get lodged in your fucking nostrils?" I always thought, you know, if you wanted to have an attitude-filled April O'Neil, Whoopi Goldberg at this time, not the way she is now, as a person. Yeah, I'm not really big on her now. But back at this time, the Jumpin' Jack Flash era, I think Whoopi Goldberg would have worked well. I do. There's Sam Rockwell. I swear one of these kids is Steve Ulrich. Maybe not. Maybe he was in there earlier. So. I think the location he mentions a nod to Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird. And see, that's what I mean. Like, the first two acts is Raphael heavy, Raphael centric. Maybe not Raphael heavy, but decent amount. And then that's kind of left by the wayside in the third act. And I thought imagine any other movie doing that, even with a team. Look at X-Men. Look what they did with X-Men. The same thing. It's a group, but who gets more of a focus? Wolverine. And then at the end, Wolverine fighting Sabretooth, and Wolverine being an important asset to helping save the day. I think you could have done that, and that was in 2000, so you could have done that with Raphael in this, but then that's just my 2 cents on it. Because this is where Splinter has the... I don't know whether the hell he learned this word, but he talks about how he likes cowabunga. Now they do the high five. You tell some of them don't quite make the high five. Like you do this and boom. Like Leo was a little bit late on it, and they don't really connect. Like they stop like here. I guess. Nice that Raphael's the one who gives Splinter a hug. And you know, great song too. The song definitely takes me back. God, this song gives me so much nostalgia. Turtle power. You know, the song that says Raphael is the leader of the group. How you could fuck that up, I have no idea. It's like they didn't watch the fucking... Sure, Raphael, he's the leader of the group. I'm like, since when? Well, you know what? Technically, that fucking shitty newer cartoon, he was the leader. And then what happened at the end? You sucked as a leader, you're not a leader anymore. Never mind, Leonardo is now the leader. God, fuck. Always disrespecting Raphael pisses me off. Pisses me off. But there, Josh Pais as Raphael. After April and Casey. the voices. Again, Josh Pais was in the suit and did the voice. And Corey Feldman's Donatello. And I think he didn't come back for the second film. Either he wanted too much money, or that was also maybe even more in his drug phase. So, but he came back for the third one. But I'm glad, because again, Adam Carl did a much better job in the second film. And I think Ernie Reyes Jr. was in the Donatello suit during the martial art bits. Because they had like performers in the suit when they just walk around. Then they have other people in the suit to do the martial arts themselves. I think Ernie Reyes Jr. was in the Donatello suit when performing martial arts. Of course, Ernie Reyes Jr. would later be in as Tino in the sequel. That was another thing that pissed me off about that Turtle Power. It's like, oh, let's not interview any of the fucking voice actors. And they even showed a picture, like they had Brian Tochi there to talk. But let's not, interview them at all. Robbie Rist, Brian Tochi, maybe Josh Pais. No, let's not talk to the people who voiced the fucking characters. They don't. And Ernie Reyes Jr. is Donatello. So, and then the second film, we're only talking about 30 seconds and just say it sucks. No, you suck. Shitty fucking documentary. Definitive my ass. I got in such a fight with those guys. Okay, I'll tell this story then. I was on this forum, this Ninja Turtle forum. And those guys, like years and years, since like 2007 or something like that, they kept pimping up this documentary. Year after year after year after year. And then it came out when the 2014 film came out. And I'm like, what the hell? How is it definitive? Most of the fucking history is missing. And like all the shit you talked about for years, you said this, you talked to this, you talked to the people, the 2003 cartoon, the voice actors. Oh, I saw all the uncut footage, and well, it's not that big of a deal. I'm like, yeah, it says the guy who saw it. That's your decision, not your opinion. Doesn't mean it'd be our opinion or my opinion. And we'll see what happens. But here's the definitive. And then you watch when it came out. It was like $10 at Target. And I'm like, wait a minute. This is just most of the fucking, like 70% of the history is missing. I talked about the first comic, a bit of the 80s cartoon, a bit of the first movie. Then it jumped to a little bit of Coming Out of Their Shells tour, where they interview like one guy. And then Eastman and Laird, like about them and how they separated, and it was more about those two guys as individuals. And I'm like, this is definitive history of the Ninja Turtles. It felt like they wanted to do more of just a biography of Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. I'm like, then just do that. They're called the definitive history, and most of the fucking history you skip over or don't even mention, and they fuck you. So fuck that documentary. It's only worth a look if you want to hear about the first movie. That section is good. But, yeah. Should just make a fucking documentary on the first movie. Make a special edition that it should have had years ago. Same with Mortal Kombat 1995 and many other films. Why this and the second film never got a special edition makes no goddamn sense. They were successful. Even the second film made $80 million. You know what else made $80 million? Freddy vs. Jason, which was the most successful Elm Street film. And you know what? The second Turtles made the same amount of money. That's how successful Turtles were at that point. But you did nothing. So New Line Cinema can go fuck themselves too. But yeah, love the movie. Great flick. And very enjoyable to watch yet again. And I have the Blu-ray. Let me tell you all the great stuff on this features. We have... You could play the movie, a trailer, A sneak peek for Smash Up game for Wii, which is Super Smash Brothers but with Ninja Turtle characters. That's all your features on the goddamn Blu-ray. A trailer. This is not even all the trailers, right? It's just one trailer. It's not the TV spots. It's not the other alternate trailers. No still gallery. I did no interviews, no documentaries, no commentaries. Jack squat. And again, if you get the German DVD, it does have a commentary, which honestly I thought was disappointing. At least to me. But I mean, maybe you get more out of it than me. It has the, what did you find on YouTube, the extended ending where April and Danny try to make a comic book, sell it, and the guy goes, this is just too ridiculous. And the Turtles are listening in, they're like, too ridiculous? Like, and that was like a fun bit. It'd be nice to see the other deleted scenes, but I guess we will never fucking see them. Oh, don't worry. The makers of that documentary said we're going to have a part 2. It's so goddamn definitive that we're going to have a part 2. That's not fucking definitive. But again, the fuck do I know, right? So with that said, thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.